All right. Okay, it's now 4:30, so I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone back to the Rapid Transit Implementation Working Group. We had a short vacation, but we're back. First of all, I'll call the meeting to order. Ask for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. There being none, there's been a request to deal with the deferred matter number 5 first, and I understand just from chatting that the committee's not objecting to that. So, Councillor Van Holst, that's your matter. Did you want to address that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So it was back earlier this year, I brought this forth while we were at the Civic Works Committee, and really I'm hoping to just inject some language into the debate, really agile and low impact. For instance, in the rapid transit system, we've got two major things. One is dedicated lanes and one is higher frequency of buses, and one of those is a little more low impact than others, so we can certainly increase the frequency without having much of an impact. And so that's something we could do earlier if we wanted. And also the idea of agile is just making incremental changes and then see how they work. So again, there's something that could be applied to this situation that use that terminology. So I think I would expect that people understand what I mean by those things. So really just the need to receive that
So your motion is just to receive that resolution?
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope, unless staff has any questions about.
All right, why don't I go to staff first and ask if there's any comments on that resolution?
There we go. Thank you, through the chair. We are clear on the intent of the resolution. There are some matters addressed in the councillor's resolution that were decided as part of the approvals that happened previous to this year, but we do respect the desire to have a low impact as we go through the construction process, and a number of the other things he's raised would be addressed in the subsequent phase when we actually do the running decisions about curbside running, centre running, those sorts of matters.
All right. Other speakers? Councillor Helmer?
Well, I'm fine receiving the communication from Councillor Van Holst. That's okay. I don't agree with directing staff and putting these kind of constraints on them. I think actually it's been Councillor Van Holst who's pointed out a number of times that sometimes we put constraints on and then it prevents people from doing things. And I don't think that is wise at this point. So I'm happy to receive it. I don't want to give the direction.
Do you want to speak to Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I'd be happy to receive it as well. I wouldn't support any kind of direction that allows staff to be less than nimble as they move forward with implementation. But if the councillor is looking for a motion to receive, I'd second that.
Thank you very much. Do you want to? We'll get that motion prepared, and you'll move that.
Sure, I'm happy to move that, and of course, I'm not hoping to create a motion to instruct staff to be agile, which makes them less agile. So. Thank you.
I think I understand. So, do we get a motion up, or what do we do? Or is it just? I
can say the motion.
Well, I think the motion is just to receive. So you'll move that, Councillor Van Holst, and Mr. Mayor, you'll second that?
Sure.
All right. Any further discussion? So we're voting to receive it. All in favor? All right. Thank you very much. We can go back to the schedule items then. Item is number 2. There's going to be a delegation, a presentation by Ms. Ramsey, and she's indicated we negotiated and we arrived at 25 minutes. She wanted 30, I offered 20. We settled in the middle.
All right. Through the chair, thank you for having me today, and welcome back to the working group from our summer break, I guess. During the summer break, we started working to build our rapid transit implementation group. So I think most of you know me, but for those that don't, my name is Jenny Ramsey, and I'm the new project director for rapid transit. My desk is too high. Can you see me now? Yeah. We've also got a couple new staff in our group as well. We have 2 managers of community engagement, and one of them is here tonight, Andrea Roseborough, and also Claudia James have joined us, and they've been with us for about 3 weeks now, and we'll also be working to continue to build our team over the fall months. I wanted to point out before we get started that we've been encouraging Londoners to tune in on YouTube or join us in the gallery to listen tonight for updates on where the project is going next. And so we've tried to gear our presentation today towards not only the members of the working group, but also to those that might be listening at home. So I always like to start off with a little background to help us get our bearings. Our last big project milestone was Council's approval of the Rapid Transit Master Plan and Business Case on July 25th. And this approval confirmed the best rapid transit network and the corridors. It was followed by a 45-day public review period for the Rapid Transit Master Plan, which wraps up on September 28th. Now, conclusion of that formal public review period on the 18th, it just means that the project's moving forward with the next phases of the environmental assessment. So we want to make sure that the public knows that public consultation will continue throughout the EA, and we encourage Londoners to continue sending us their comments and questions at shift@london.ca. The feedback that we receive will help to refine the conceptual level designs of the master plan through the next phase of the study. Now, Ontario's environmental assessment process for transit projects is structured into 5 technical phases. The master plan represents phases 1 and 2, and that's now complete. The transit project assessment process represents phases 3 and 4, and concludes at the end of phase 4 with a statement of completion. And then phase 5 represents detailed design and construction, which will be addressed under a separate future project assignment. So today, we will be focusing on phases 3 and 4, the transit project assessment process. So that covers where we've been. Let's talk about where we're headed. The documents submitted today are the updated project management plan and the communications and consultation plan. These plans provide a roadmap for the next phases of the study, and today we will outline the technical analysis and engagement deliverables required to both prepare for and complete the time-limited TPAP process. But before we dive into that, I really first want to take a bit of time to explain TPAP, how it's structured, and what to expect. The transit project regulations provide a framework for focused consultation and timely decision-making. And that TPAP process, it differs from the traditional environmental assessment framework that's existed in Ontario for more than 30 years. So it's a little bit different than what we're used to, and that's why we want to make sure that Londoners understand what to expect during the TPAP phases of the EA. The TPAP is a proponent-driven, self-guided assessment process intended specifically for transit-related projects that includes a focused consultation and objection process. As I noted on the background slide, TPAP can be separated into 2 phases. Phase 3 is the pre-planning activities. And that phase 3 of the EA will identify and evaluate design alternatives and develop a preferred alternative. So this phase will include conducting public and stakeholder consultation, identifying impacts and related mitigation measures, additional assessment of impacts to natural, cultural, archaeological, and socioeconomic environments. We'll be updating and completing a range of technical analysis, and it also includes our Public Information Center number 5 to obtain feedback from the public to help us in evaluating those design alternatives. At the conclusion of phase 3, we will have a draft environmental project report with supporting technical appendices, a preliminary engineering design, and a complete record of consultation throughout the EA. The phase 3 period is where we really get to get down and start working on refining the approved corridors. So phase 4 of the TPAP is, during this period, stakeholders in the public will have the opportunity to comment on the draft environmental project report. So this phase will include a notice of commencement, which triggers a 120-day TPAP review period. The 120-day period will also include another Public Information Center, PIC6. The final EPR, or Environmental Project Report, documenting consultation and the findings will be produced at the end of the 120-day period, signaled by a notice of completion, and then it moves on to a formal 30-day review period and objection period, followed by then a 35-day period for the minister to give notice. The outcome of the phase 4 is a finalized Environmental Project Report and the issuance of a statement of completion. Now, for those people who prefer to digest information graphically, this slide illustrates the TPAP process along with some of the key deliverables that I described and timelines to help provide a visual context. So as you can see, we've got the phase 3 pre-planning and consultation, and we list some of those things I talked about, like continued consultation, developing alternatives, and getting to a draft environmental project report. Right now, our project timelines show us working on that between September and March of next year. At that point, with the draft EPR, once it's been reviewed by the Ministry of the Environment, we will start phase 4 with the notice of commencement for the TPAP. That triggers the 120-day public review period, including one PIC. At the end of that, we produce the final EPR and issue a notice of completion. Then move on to the 30-day period for public review and objection opportunities, and then the minister reviews to make a decision within 35 days. So once the notice of commencement is issued, it's a fairly structured process to move through phase 4 of the TPAP. So what we're trying to do with our project management plan that we're presenting today is make sure that we've adequately addressed matters of provincial importance, because that's key to a successful completion of the EA. But we also want to consider the matters of public interest and try to foster community support, mitigate issues that will help us during detailed design and construction. We feel the updated project management plan that we're presenting today includes all the necessary tasks to accomplish both. I thought I would spend some time describing what the matters of provincial importance are. The TPAP process does not require that a transit project be approved by the minister before proceeding. However, objections may be made to the minister if there's a potential for a negative impact on a matter of provincial importance or constitutionally protected Aboriginal or treaty rights. Matters of provincial importance include parkland and protected areas, species of special concern and their habitats, natural heritage areas, areas of natural and scientific interest, fisheries, hydrological features, areas of potential contamination, protected heritage property, built heritage landscapes, archaeological resources, and again, constitutionally protected Aboriginal rights. Now, while objections to the environmental project report must be related to matters of provincial importance, the project must still carry out best practices related to all aspects of planning and designing the rapid transit network. So with some background on the TPAP settled, I'm going to walk you next through our updated project management plan to complete TPAP. So the previous project management plan was prepared in 2016, and that was brought forward to council following the restructuring of the proposed network into the northeast and the southwest corridors, as well as some additional modifications to major infrastructure at the time. The scope of work for that PMP was updated to complete phases 3 and 4 for both rapid transit corridors, all 4 legs, as well as obtain the necessary approvals for the EA for the revised rapid transit network. Since that time, there's been significant amount of feedback, and the project has required consideration of alternative solutions in order to help us arrive at the approved BRT network and corridor alignment that we have now. So the Rapid Transit Corridors EA project management plan that we're presenting today has now been updated to reflect today's approved BRT network. The updated project management plan provides a guide to the remaining deliverables necessary to complete the TPAP. The balance of the project scope has been influenced by the following factors. Additional effort that was necessary to complete phases 1 and 2 or get to a decision on the Rapid Transit Master Plan, updated TPAP scope to address approved corridors, and also some new and expanded TPAP scope items that will respond to the community interests. We're going to walk through each of these 3 influencing factors and provide some specific examples for you. So the first factor was additional effort necessary to complete phases 1. And in order to look at this, we need to reflect back on the additional effort applied during the master planning process. And that effort wasn't always necessarily contemplated in the previous project management plan. Based on feedback received during the Rapid Transit Master Plan, it was necessary to review various solutions through a level of detail beyond that of a typical master plan. For example, conceptual designs were prepared for an additional 10 kilometers of potential corridor to support consideration of alternative routes. Multiple network alternatives were assessed using a business case framework. Input of additional specialists was required to help us in examining different routes, and several additional community and stakeholder meetings were held in the spring, supported by numerous illustrated renderings to help communicate with the public. This design work completed for the Rapid Transit Master Plan provided an enhanced level of detail needed to reach a decision on the bus rapid transit network, on the network. But while this enhanced level of detail was worthwhile to support decision-making, it did use up some budget allocated to complete the balance of TPAP. The project management plan was also updated to reflect our approved network. This includes elements that trigger further analysis through TPAP that weren't accommodated or accounted for in the previous scope. Items captured in this influencing factor include some of those deliverables that might be part of a standard TPAP process, but either the scope has changed or was expanded as a result of our approved corridors. Some elements of the updated TPAP scope include examining 9 focus areas in greater detail, additional effort for technical analysis based on the approved corridors. In some cases, multiple design options will be drafted out to illustrate and evaluate the different design alternatives. Cultural heritage screening report at a corridor assessment level is going to be increased based on the number of properties that we found to be directly or indirectly impacted by the project. And as well, we've added air quality review and procurement analysis by Infrastructure Ontario. In order to develop and evaluate design concepts or alternative design concepts and effectively engage the public in the decision-making, additional effort will be required for assessing aspects such as engineering, architecture, streetscape, and transit operations. And so I'd like to kind of walk you through some of those bullets in a little bit more detail so you can kind of understand what we're going to be doing over the next 6 months of the pre-planning activities. When it comes to evaluating design options, the entire 24-kilometer bus rapid transit network will be reviewed to determine areas where alternative designs could reduce or eliminate negative impacts. In the key focus areas, these alternative designs will be advanced to a functional level 10 to 15% design level. So if we were to hand a contractor a set of drawings and say, go, that's 100%, these drawings would take it to about a 10 to 15% level, which gives us enough feel for the different alternatives to be able to evaluate them and communicate them to the public. In some cases, we'll be doing multiple design options in order to have materials to present to the public and stakeholders and the project team, demonstrating and illustrating those different alternatives. While the list of focus areas will still be confirmed by the city's project team, the Rapid Transit Master Plan proposed 9 areas to review as shown in this exhibit. And there's some of the key things. They're the transit villages at each of the nodes and some key hotspots along the routes. For structures, the preliminary structure requirements were determined for existing structures along the BRT corridors as part of the master plan, but structural alternatives will still need to be developed and evaluated in parallel with the road alignments at existing crossings, as well as anticipating retaining walls where needed. And again, with the final approved corridors, there's some additional work that we hadn't anticipated. Some of the structures that are identified along RT corridors are listed on this slide. TPAP pre-planning activities will include review of rapid transit station layouts and key design features like safety and security, shelter. We'll be looking at loading area capacity, ability to provide dynamic transit information, and even fare collection systems, some options around that. The updated project management plan will also consider potential impacts of station design if we were to go with an electrical bus and include a workshop with city staff to review station design development. As part of our quick start concept, we're considering possibly looking at a prototype station, which might be able to come out early and help to build excitement for the project. For cultural heritage, the scope of the cultural heritage screening report has been expanded beyond what was originally anticipated to capture additional properties identified as being directly or indirectly impacted by the project and needing specific analysis regarding impacts and mitigation. This corridor level assessment will be prepared for the full BRT network and then focus in on impacted properties or segments of the corridors with a more detailed assessment following the same principles as you would see in a cultural heritage evaluation report. Oops, back. In the case of natural heritage, an environmental impact study scope was defined with input from EPAC back in the spring. And the summer fieldwork is already underway for the approved BRT corridors. We will be now adding an air quality impact assessment to our work plan. We will be reviewing current conditions as well as future conditions in 2034 for both with BRT and without BRT, so we have a comparison. And we'll also be doing a noise and vibration impact assessment. So that sort of wraps up that sort of second bucket of influencing factors. Those are the things where, you know, we were included in the scope, but they've now expanded or changed as a result of the approved corridors. The third factor that's influencing the project management plan scope captures those deliverables where staff are recommending new or enhanced scope beyond the base requirements of a TPAP. These recommended TPAP extras respond to the feedback received from the public as well as enhancements requested by council during the master planning process. These TPAP enhancements recommended in the PMP are listed here, and I'm going to expand on these in the next few slides. In addition to these technical analysis and assessment enhancements, our preliminary engineering design that will be presented as part of the final environmental project report is going to be taken to a design level of about 30%. So again, that's more than what would typically be done at a TPAP level. Most TPAPs will take it to that 10 to 15% functional level design. But we think that based on the feedback and the detailed level of questions and comments we've got from the public, that it makes sense to take our design to a 30% level, which will give them a real picture of what it's going to look like. So as far as recommended enhancements, obviously one of the first ones, we've all talked a lot about communication and consultation. So we've accommodated and accounted for enhanced consultation in our project management plan. So the TPAP, off the pages. The TPAP project management plan will account for enhanced consultation and additional meetings with technical agencies, community stakeholders. We've got groups set up with our municipal advisory committees, and also this forum here at the working group is a great way to be able to reach out to the public by letting them know that they can watch along and see the updates as we bring forward information and progress on the project. We'll be having 4 consensus building workshops that are with city staff to be able to further develop key project topics. We're looking at having a public design charrette to engage the public and possibly involve them in selecting certain project elements such as station architecture, urban design, or public art. And our communications plan, which I'm going to get to at the end, I'm going to flesh out even more some of those things. But these are some of the key things actually affect the project management plan in terms of aligning those 2 documents. The project management plan, it also includes an expanded scope of traffic analysis in response to the questions and the calls for more information related to traffic impacts of the proposed system. So the detailed traffic impact analysis will be completed for all signalized intersections using synchro modeling, which is a pretty standard transportation modeling, but we're also recommending that we do additional modeling using a system called VISM. Now, VISM, it produces very dynamic visualizations that are easy for the public to realize, and it can look at an overall system. And so what we're going to be doing is we're recommending looking particularly at the Richmond Street area and its surrounding neighborhoods to help assist in quantifying what the potential traffic diversion impacts might be for the various cross sections that we're looking at. So we're going to develop different design alternatives for Richmond and then model the impact of those different alternatives on the neighboring community. Alternative design concepts will include consideration as well for preferred strategy and implementing intelligent transportation systems. So that's making our signals smart and communicating to each other and being able to allow traffic to move more efficiently, not only on the rapid transit corridors, but on other parallel arterials within the city. It's important to remember that rapid transit does not replace the current LTC system. In fact, strengthening local transit service to work together with rapid transit is an important part of the proposed plan. Existing bus routes will be integrated to provide connections to rapid transit stations. To address public concerns regarding integration of local transit and rapid transit, our TPAP will build on the previous rapid transit integration framework to revisit the recommendations of the 2035 LTC network so that it considers a system that has BRT in place. And it'll also integrate infrastructure requirements along the BRT corridors to support local service where appropriate. The BRT corridors will be designed to create the opportunity for safe and effective transit with an enhanced street experience that serves users of all ages, abilities, and travel modes. Our project management plan now includes coordination with the ongoing City Complete Streets project, and a design workshop is planned with city staff to develop concepts that consider the larger streetscape for the various corridor segments. As a project enhancement, conceptual designs will be developed at 8 rapid transit stations to address unique situations, provide opportunity for potential public engagement, and build a connection with the surrounding communities. Standard practice for TPAP is to include a Stage 1 archaeological assessment and identify whether there's a need for more thorough assessments through the implementation phase. Based on the approved BRT network, some additional Stage 1 archaeological assessments will be required along the adjusted corridors. Also, the updated PMP recommends including Stage 2 archaeological assessments as part of TPAP for those select areas identified through the original Stage 1 assessment. Should those Stage 2 assessments indicate that further study was done, then that will be accounted for in the implementation phase. There are a few other recommended studies that have been included in our project management plan based on feedback that we received. We'll be commissioning an independent safety audit to review road safety for the draft preliminary engineering design. We'll be conducting an expert peer review by hosting a one-day event for BRT professionals from across Canada to view our preliminary designs and to gather their suggestions and feedback. We'll also be reviewing parking, access, and curbside activities for the full 24-kilometer network and conducting a business impact assessment for Wellington Street from Horton to South Street. So that summarizes up sort of all the work that we have to do over the 6 months. There's a lot there. And I think that that's what we wanted to give you, not kind of float on top, but really get into some of the details of the work that we have to do over the next period of the project so you can understand where that's coming from and also be able to anticipate places where if yourselves or members of the public are interested in a certain aspect, to engage us on it and let us know what you're thinking. So moving on to...
Just for yours, would it be all right to ask questions now on this part of it and then proceed on, or do you want to do the whole report?
What's your preference?
Committee, you want to ask questions now or wait? We'll wait. Nobody's...
I got 25 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the comms plan, which I'm really excited to be able to present today. Before I get into that, I want to let you know about how things have been going with our 45-day public review period. So we've had a really great response. Since August 3rd, we've seen over 2,000 visits to the SHIFT website, and of those, over 900 were specifically to the master plan page. So people are looking at the master plan, they're checking it out online. So we're really excited to see those metrics. We've had more than 70 emails to our SHIFT email account, and also about 90 Londoners have viewed the document in person at City Hall and library branches across the city. So people have been out to look at it, and that's great. We're really excited to see that. We're even starting to see visitors at our new Rapid Transit Implementation Office temporary headquarters over at the London Central Library, and people are welcome to drop in to see us. As I mentioned earlier, the 18th, the end of that public review period, is not an end of consultation or communication. We want consultation to continue throughout the EA, and we want to encourage Londoners to keep reaching out to us, and we'll be doing the same to them. So we heard loud and clear from Londoners and Council that communication is key for this project, and we need to have a clear plan to keep the community informed and engaged as we go forward. The SHIFT Communications and Consultation Plan was designed to guide transparent, proactive engagement and consultation with stakeholders across the community. Our goals for engagement are to build trust and accountability for the SHIFT Rapid Transit process. We want to give stakeholders an opportunity to provide insight to shape the RT corridor design, improve understanding of project timeline, let people be more aware of where we are in the process and where we're going. And then also promote the project as an integrated transit network with BRT and local services working together to serve the entire city. I think that's a really important message for, it's not just BRT, it's a whole integrated system. Our plan for communications is meant to be a fluid document. It identifies engagement opportunities, but also provides flexibility to be able to respond to what we hear from the public going forward. And so again, we want to put this out there as a series of opportunities, strategies, and activities that we can use to be able to foster positive engagement, but we're always open to new opportunities. So going forward, our team is committed to following key principles outlined in our communications plan, and those are transparency, inclusivity, responsiveness, clarity, plain language, and respect. There are many diverse opinions in our community, and we want to make sure that we're respecting and listening to all of them. There you go. To be able to translate the work that we're doing on our communications plan to that we're doing in the project management plan, we've tried to use a similar layout for our diagrams to be able to illustrate that. And so what you can see is the very same structure as our other one, where we've got the phase 3 pre-planning and consultation activities. And we've tried to illustrate what some of those activities or strategies that are going to happen during that consultation and pre-planning period will be. Again, we've got another public information center. We'll be doing workshops. We're trying to look at digital booths, lots of social media outreach, and we're trying to make sure that we have a very constant presence and regular updates, no news stories, things to be able to keep people up to date. And so there's a series of activities that we're proposing to be able to do that. For the transit project assessment process, the stage 4, we have another public information center, and again, we'll be continuing to keep the information flowing. At this point, it's more of a receiving information because we're in that public review period, but we want to be able to hear the feedback on the final environmental project report. And then going forward with phase 5, we will have a new comms plan that will be prepared once we get into detailed design and consultation or construction, because then the focus is more on dealing with the specifics and the logistics of construction. We've organized our various stakeholders by areas of interest, expertise, or mandate, and we've done that so that we can hopefully effectively engage as many residents, business owners, institutions, and technical agencies as possible. Our plan identifies some core stakeholder groups for ongoing consultation. We're always looking for new and interesting ways to reach out to the general public. We're also going to be looking at strategies to reach out to current transit riders. I think that's something that we maybe didn't do as much in the last phase. So things like getting out on the street with surveys, doing ride-alongs, and trying to reach out with those people that are using the bus today, because they're experts. Our plan also has regard for those constitutionally protected Aboriginal rights, and we need to work that in, and we've been already working with the local First Nations to try to arrange meetings and get out to meet them one-on-one. We've decided on 3 structured groups where we've pulled stakeholders together and asked them to each send a delegate to represent their interests. Individual meetings will also be arranged with many of these stakeholders, but those 3 areas are a community stakeholder group, which is made up of major institutions and shopping malls. Our municipal advisory group is comprised of representatives from existing municipal advisory committees, each of them, again, sending one representative to represent their group and their interests. And then we've also created a technical agencies group. So these would be very similar to a lot of the people that you would see on our utilities coordination committee. That's getting into the more technical side of coordinating our designs going forward. And of course, we're going to look for lots of opportunities to reach out to other types of interest groups, visiting community organizations or business associations through the period and looking for opportunities to engage with them. Phase 5, implementation. So at the end of the EA process, the project is going to enter that implementation phase, that's where we really get into preparation of contract drawings, construction, operation, and monitoring. That's not part of TPAP, that's part of the next phase. The statement of TPAP completion will end at the end of phase 4, and that will really be the end of this communications plan. But what we will do is we'll provide a summary at the end, an evaluation report of how we did for this period. And then going forward, we will prepare a new communications plan for phase 5. And so what that'll focus on is providing frequent information and updates to the public as we work through detailed design and construction. So it's a little bit of a different focus. So in conclusion, I didn't check the time, but the updated project management plan and communications plan will provide our roadmap for the next phases of the environmental assessment and outline the remaining technical and engagement work that needs to happen to complete TPAP. So our project management plan has been updated to reflect the approved BRT network and include the enhancements that we've brought forward. And our communications plan will guide our proactive engagement strategy for the community. The plans that we've brought forward today follow sound planning and engineering methods. They'll inform and involve the local community and consider public interests in order to foster community support and hopefully mitigate issues during detailed design and construction. These plans will deliver a comprehensive EA outlining a quality rapid transit system for London. So with that, I am open to any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramsey. Appreciate it. So just before I start, there was a concern about quorum, but I've been informed that Councillor Morgan and Councillor Hopkins resigned, so we're going to be fine because I know some members have to leave. So I'll open up for questions from the committee. No questions? Oh, Councillor Helmer, I was getting worried there about you, Councillor Helmer.
Might get worse once I start talking. So I have a question around the vehicle choice and when we're going to be making a decision about that. I know we've given direction around, let's look into electric vehicles. Depending on what kind of vehicle we choose, I think it can influence things like the station design and the architecture of the stations, the kind of facility that the transit operator needs to charge the buses or fill them with gas or do maintenance. There's a lot of things that can change according to that, and the cost of the bus obviously is different, both the upfront costs and the operating costs. So I wonder when in this process we're going to be dealing with that. I also think it's going to affect things like the branding that we might have for the rapid transit system and so forth. So where in this process are we going to be talking about that, and do we know yet when we're going to be making a decision about the vehicles?
Through the chair, as part of our pre-planning activities, we are doing an assessment of electric buses. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Pilecki to explain the group QTRIC that's going to be helping us with that.
Thanks, Jenny, through the chair. So the Canadian Urban Transit Research and Innovation Consortium, which is a collection of transit agencies, academia, and private sector, are undertaking an electric bus demo, and London Transit is part of that demo in phase 2. Part of what they offer, and we're just now gathering the data to provide them, is modeling for specific routes and looking at the different electric technologies that are out there already. So whether it's roadside charging, it's full overnight charge, those type of things. So depending on the frequency of the service, the length of the route, all of those things go into consideration. So that is scheduled to be underway within the next week or two. Out of that, QTRIC will give us a detailed report that I would imagine at some point would come back to this committee for further assessment. But that process is well underway, and it is happening imminently, I would say.
Any other questions? Councillor Van Holst.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, you described strengthening the LTC as a means of complementing the rapid transit. Just thought I'd ask at this point what kinds of strategies we were going to use or we're considering for that.
Through the chair, as part of our plan, we have included efforts to go and revisit some of the previous transit integration strategies, so it looks at that local integration and then updates it to reflect our current rapid transit corridors. So we will be looking, as part of our pre-planning activities, is trying to see how we can better align the local service with the BRT to be able to create an integrated network.
Thank you.
Do you have a further question, Councillor?
Oh, yeah, fine.
Go ahead.
Probably had a couple, huh? Sure. You mentioned there's a number of studies that we're going to be doing based on the feedback. I'm wondering if there's any, people could have asked for any number of studies, any studies we decided not to do or didn't think were necessary to do?
I think that many of the studies that we've added were spoken about through numerous venues of our consultation in the previous master planning process, and that there was a number of ways that was fed back. I wasn't at those personally, but I think that maybe others, if they can speak to some specifics on why those ones were chosen. But I understand that there was some discussion in public forums and that some council direction as well on certain ones to include them in our work plan.
Through the chair, I don't believe there are any specifically requested studies that we're not doing that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. And maybe just a comment at this point, so the fact that we're taking the design to 30%, I think is great. That gives a large amount of certainty to the public at where things are going. So maybe less high level is excellent in a project like this. You mentioned that the TPAP is different from the EA process. Just maybe a couple highlights of what we're expecting that was different in those two.
I think the main difference between TPAP and a typical EA that you would do for a sewer extension or a road widening is the dedicated and structured timelines are there. And so what it does is it drives quick decision-making. So having the pre-planning activities in front as part of phase 3 to be able to work to a solid preliminary engineering design. And then once that first, the draft environmental project report goes forward, it follows a very structured timeline to get to a decision from the minister. And I think that's the real difference with a TPAP process over a traditional environmental assessment.
Yes, thank you. It is great that we've got a very well-defined timeline. We know when it's going to start, when it's going to end. So those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? There being none, then we'll just, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
First, I want to thank you for this very detailed project management plan. It's fantastic. I can't see any stone that wasn't turned over. I do have a couple questions regarding the communications and consultation plan. First, is the consultation with the community going to be in multiple languages?
Through the chair, that isn't something that I had considered, but is an excellent suggestion. I think that we could certainly include something into our communications plan to account for multilingual accesses.
Thank you. And my second comment is more of a comment, not a direction or even it is a suggestion. When I look at this plan, we're asking an entire city to buy into this. And what I'm not seeing is a buy-in from this corporation, apart from people doing their jobs and what's expected. When I look at something like a corporate social responsibility program, change starts from the top, from the CEO to the custodian that cleans the office buildings. What I don't see at City Hall is any kind of bus pass plan. And I think if you want to engage your community, you need to start with the people who are asking people to engage with them. So it would be something that I would consider having some kind of subsidized pass program in the city, whether it's a tax deductible benefit, whatever. I will leave that to smarter people than myself to figure out. But I think I don't want it to be a political issue, but these are employees of the city. These are the people, the stakeholders that you're talking about who work here and who maybe do take transit or just haven't taken transit yet. So I would like to see a little more engagement along that line and promoting actually taking the bus within this center or within this corporation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments on that? Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Through the chair, I think it's an interesting suggestion as we're advocating for transportation demand management in the community, what we choose to do as an employer. It's a discussion that I would like to take back to our CAO and to our Managing Director of Human Resources, as they'd be best equipped to respond.
Anything further? I don't want to miss anyone. Councillor Helmer?
Thank you. So the communications plan, I think, first of all, it's helpful to have it mapped out and understand what we're planning to do on that front. I think that's going to help us do better on the communications front. It's obviously a complex thing, and so how we're going to communicate is fairly important. In terms of the overall budget for the project, is the kind of work that we're talking about being able to do around communications going to be accommodated within those existing approved budgets, or are we expecting come forward with some kind of budget adjustments to handle that work?
Through the chair, our total project cost includes a line item for project management, and that's where the communications plans will be funded from that line item. And we do have adequate funding in there to be able to cover this as well as our other project management plan needs.
Anything further from anyone? All All right, we'll need to move receipt of the reports. Somebody prepared to do that? Mr. Shepherd. You know what? I'm forgetting what we call people under. Commissioner, yes. Commissioner Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Helmer. All those in favor? You better get used to it because I'm getting older. I have a birthday next week, so it's only going to get worse. All right, thank you very much for the report. We have 2 consent items. Anyone wish to comment on either of the consent items? Somebody prepared to move the consent items? Councillor Helmer, seconded by Chair Ruth. All those in favor? We've dealt with the deferred matters, so I just need a motion for adjournment. Councillor Helmer, seconded by Commissioner Southern. All those in favor? And it's passed. And we are done, and it was a 45-minute meeting, my kind of meeting. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Football's on tonight.